Clouds of thick smoke rise in the Philippine Sea as two Japanese carriers fight to stay afloat. This is the story of the doomed sister ships, Chiyoda and Chitose, who went down fighting. Before their tragic end, their very creation carried the seeds of failure. Originally launched as seaplane tenders in the 1930s, Chiyoda and Chitose were built to support Japan's growing naval aviation. But after the devastating losses at Midway in 1942, the Imperial Navy faced an impossible choice: rebuild or collapse. Both ships were recalled to dry dock and hastily converted into light aircraft carriers, part of a desperate attempt to restore Japan's shattered air arm. Their sleek hulls and high speed made the conversion seem promising, but only on paper. Because beneath the new flight decks lay the same limitations: light armor, small hangars, and barely enough aircraft to challenge even a single American carrier group. By 1943, the Pacific balance had already shifted. Japan's industrial might couldn't match the relentless American output. Chiyoda and Chitose entered service not as symbols of resurgence, but of resignation. Sleek vessels built for a navy already losing the war. Their story was never about victory, only about how far loyalty could carry a doomed fleet. But behind every training flight lay a grim truth: they'd never stand a chance. By early 1944, Chiyoda and Chitose had become floating classrooms. Their decks echoed not with combat, but with the routines of young, inexperienced pilots practicing takeoffs and landings for battles they would likely never survive. Japan's dwindling fuel reserves and shortage of veteran instructors turned training into a ritual, something more than mere preparation. Aircraft were outdated, engines unreliable, and spare parts scarce. Each flight risked mechanical failure as much as enemy interception. The Imperial Navy called it preparation, but the officers aboard knew the truth. These drills were buying time, not building strength. Still, the crews refused to break. They polished decks, maintained discipline, and clung to the Bushido spirit that had guided Japan's sailors for generations. Every man aboard believed his ship might one day serve in Japan's redemption. But as months passed and the Allies closed in, that hope dimmed. Their next orders would not be for training anymore, they'd call for sacrifice. And when the orders finally came, every man aboard understood what they meant. In October 1944, Chiyoda and Chitose were reassigned to Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa's Northern Force, but not as strike carriers, as bait. Operation Shogo was Japan's last desperate gamble to halt the American invasion of the Philippines. The Northern Force would draw the US Third Fleet northward, away from Leyte Gulf, while the remaining Japanese surface fleet struck the vulnerable invasion forces from behind. On paper, it was pure strategy, whereas in reality it was more like suicide. Both ships carried only a handful of aircraft, and most of them were obsolete, assigned to be flown by inexperienced pilots for training only. Yet the crews made ready without hesitation, fully aware they'd been chosen not for their strength, but for their expendability. On October 24th, the task force steamed south from Japan's home waters toward the open Pacific. To the men aboard, the goal was never victory. It was just a farewell voyage. The Empire had given its final order, and they would obey without question. By dawn, the calm blue sea would turn into a killing ground. At first light on October 25, 1944, American reconnaissance aircraft sighted Admiral Ozawa's Northern Force moving east of Luzon. The message reached US carriers instantly, and within hours, swarms of Hellcats, Helldivers, and Avengers filled the sky. Japan's decoy fleet, already stripped of supporting aircraft, had no chance. Chitose was the first to fall. Hit by multiple bombs and torpedoes in rapid succession, she rolled violently to port before capsizing. The blast tore through her hangar decks, and within minutes, she was gone. Few men escaped the burning wreckage, and most of them were just lost to the sea. Nearby ships could only watch helplessly as oil fires spread across the water. For the American pilots above, It was another victory in a one-sided war. For the Japanese sailors below, it was the beginning of the end, a clear proof that courage could definitely not outfly modern firepower. And yet, one ship refused to surrender to despair. Chiyoda was still afloat, and she was still fighting. As smoke thickened and the sea turned crimson, one ship defied the inevitable. With Chitose now gone, Chiyoda became the next target of American carrier groups. Waves of aircraft descended, pounding her decks with precision strikes. Each one of these impacts shook the hull, rupturing fuel lines and igniting fires that roared through her hangars. Yet, even crippled and burning, Chiyoda did not turn away. Her anti-aircraft crews fought relentlessly, tracking enemy planes through smoke and chaos. Gun barrels glowed red-hot, and ammunition crews passed shells by hand as systems failed one after another. Nearby destroyers Isuzu and Hatsuzuki tried to screen her from further attack, laying smoke and firing at diving bombers, but it was hopeless. Multiple hits left Chiyoda dead in the water, engines silent, decks torn open. Still, her remaining gunners refused to abandon their posts. Every shot was an act of defiance, every explosion a refusal to yield. For hours she endured, surrounded, outnumbered and burning, a single wounded ship, holding on to honor in a war already lost. Night fell over a sea of wreckage as Chiyoda refused surrender. By late afternoon, Chiyoda was a burning wreck that was drifting helplessly amid the waves. Her escorts, battered and running very low on ammunition, received the order to withdraw. Captain Jiro Nomura, aboard Isuzu, was the one who made the painful decision, because any attempt to stay meant certain death for all. And so Chiyoda was left alone, surrounded by the advancing US task force. On the other side, American cruisers Santa Fe Mobile and Wichita moved in for the final blow. Their guns opened fire at close range, and each salvo tore through Chiyoda's already shattered hull. Explosions even rolled through her magazines, sending debris skyward as flames engulfed what remained of her flight deck. There were no distress calls, no signs of surrender, obviously. The ship's final moments passed in silence, her crew remaining at their stations until the end. When the smoke cleared, Chiyoda too was finally gone, taking every soul on board with her. No survivors, no rescue, and absolutely no trace of life, only the echo of duty carried away by the sea. But here is what amazing, even in death, the sister ships left behind astonishing final details. Divers and naval archives later revealed haunting facts about Chiyoda and Chitose's final moments. Right before Chitose rolled over and sank, American pilots reported her crew still manning the guns and firing even as the ship capsized, inflicting casualties. In Chiyoda's case, radar logs from US Task Force 38 show that she also continued returning fire nearly 30 minutes after being immobilized, despite taking multiple direct hits. And post-war analysis confirmed that both ships even scored near-miss hits on US aircraft during the attack, which is remarkable given their crippled condition and lack of any real air cover. American after-action reports noted the stubborn persistence of Japanese anti-aircraft fire, describing it as far beyond expectation. Wreck surveys decades later found Chiyoda's hull torn in two, her forward gun mounts still facing skyward. Chitose's wreck lies inverted nearby, her stern buried in silt, sister ships reunited in death. Even in ruin, their final defiance remains frozen beneath the Philippine Sea, a testimony to a fight that refused to end quietly.